Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. My name is Nastasia and I'm squinting because the light is so bright. I can't use any natural sunlight right now because, well, first of all, it's like 5 o'clock, which means apparently it's midnight as far as light is concerned. It's completely dark out and it's been storming like for the past 40 days and 40 nights here, so I don't have any natural light, so I have to use my ring light, so I apologize if the lighting is crazy, but that's how it's gonna be for the next couple videos because I'm bulk filming right now. So today we are talking about physical boundaries, which is such a fun topic. No, but it is something that does need to be talked about, and I feel like a lot of times it's very much like a hush-hush subject, but it needs to be talked about. So today we're talking about physical boundaries and like relationships and stuff, and like a lot of people want to know like how far is too far and stuff like that. So we're talking about all that today. Before I get into it, if you end up liking this video, please give it a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on a video and a bad lighting situation and a storm every time I post. Okay, the first thing I want to address is the big question of how far is too far, especially if you're a Christian and you're in a relationship and you're like, I want to honor God, but I also really like this person and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk about that. The first thing I have to say, you're not going to like this answer, but how far is too far? It just kind of depends. Okay, I know that's like a catch-all question, but I'll explain a little bit better. So when I was in college, the Christian college I went to, I took a lot of different Bible classes. We basically had to have a minor in Bible. So because of that, I had to take a class called Biblical Worldview, and we kind of talked about this and the idea of weaker brother, stronger brother. And this was the first time I'd ever heard of this, really. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it was the first time I'd ever heard of this concept. And there are gray lines, like there are gray areas I shouldn't say gray lines, gray areas in the Bible where there's not it's not all black and white. It's like it is different for each person. And I don't want you to take that and be like, wow, that's really vague. The Bible doesn't mean that. I'll explain. So, when it comes to weaker brother, stronger brother, the basic concept of that means that certain things might tempt people and cause sin and cause a stumbling into sin more than others. So some people, they literally don't want to do anything but hold hands until marriage. Am I one of those people? I'm not. I could not personally do that, but some people, that is something that if they go beyond holding hands or hugging, that's too much for them. They feel like they're doing something wrong. They feel like it is not good for them. They feel like they could fall easily into sin, and they don't want to risk that. So honestly, for them, this is what I learned in Biblical Worldview. Don't at me. This is what I learned from my professors. That if that is their line, that's their line. They should not go past that. That's the line for them. If you are somebody who you're like, that's not me, let's go to the next one up. I get that. Maybe for you it's kissing but not making out, because making out will make you feel like that's too much and you could fall easily down that path. Okay, then kissing is your line. And maybe you're good with making out or whatever, and making out's your line. Okay, so then it's okay, where's the line beyond that? So this is gonna be an opinion for me. This is going to be opinions from myself to you, so take it with a grain of salt. For me personally, I believe that anything beyond making out and I don't know, just holding and stuff like that, I believe it's too far. It can go down a lot of different lines for me. I'm not saying it isn't difficult. That's a whole nother concept we're going to get into. It's going to be difficult to make certain boundaries and stuff. But my thing is, if you wouldn't feel comfortable telling either your mom, your dad, your grandma, your pastor about it, whoever's the most influential in your life and the most kind of in the word, in your life, if you wouldn't feel comfortable telling them that, then maybe that's your line. But for me, that's kind of where it is for me. I know the Bible, from my personal knowledge, clearly, like, you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. Like God very much commands us to stay, like, pure in that sense until marriage. Doesn't mean you aren't loved if you haven't saved yourself for marriage, okay? And you can be reborn into that purity and stuff. That's a whole nother video. But yeah, if you want, I'll link up here below, Wow, I'm really doing well. I'll link up here the card for my video on what the church doesn't tell you about saving yourself for marriage, and that I kind of talk about that a little bit more. But today we're just talking about physical boundaries other than sex before marriage. So that one is a no-no when it comes to Christian standards. When it comes to the Bible, that's a no-no. But the rest is kind of like, the Bible doesn't talk about dating, so how do we maneuver that? And so, like, yeah, that's my thing, is there are gray areas, and, like, for some people, kissing might be too much for them. And if they feel guilt in their heart over God being like, you shouldn't do this, then maybe they shouldn't do it. And if you feel okay with it and you feel like you would not be tempted more, then that's different, you know? So I know that might not answer your question totally, but that is my take on it. Alright, so going into this, prepare for it to be difficult. Prepare for when you're setting up these boundaries and you have to, you know, hold them, that it's going to be difficult. And maybe some situations you're just like, oh, I can just say no, this isn't hard. And maybe there's some situations where you're like, oh my gosh, I hate this. So prepare for it to not be a walk in the park, and if you're prepared for that and you know it's coming, you can fight it better. Next tip, this is to my ladies, because most of my videos are for women mostly. Figure out what the guy's physical boundaries are, because in a relationship, especially a godly relationship, the man is supposed to be the spiritual leader. That's not saying you girls are not incredibly capable, but that's saying, that is calling men to be the spiritual leader, because they should be guiding you, and they should be strong and brave and loving the Lord enough to say, I'm going to guide us towards a relationship that's going to last. And you should be able to sit back and be like, do it, I'm here for the ride, you know? And so figure out what his physical boundaries are. If that's a difficult question, then maybe he's not the one. He should be somebody who, like, it's easy to talk to and be like, hey, okay, so since we're, like, dating now and stuff, I think we should talk about this. I think we should talk about how far is too far for us and, like, stuff like that. Figure out what his boundaries are. Once you figure them out, if they are more than yours are, like, maybe you just want to kiss or whatever, and maybe he wants to do way more than that, then he should scale it back for you. And the opposite, if he's like, I don't want to go any further than kissing, and you've been okay with doing way more than that, you need to scale back and protect and respect him, okay? Like, that, you guys need to protect each other's purity. That's what a relationship should be. But you need to figure out what his are. And once you figure it out, let's say you're like, mine are way more, like, I don't know, conservative than that, or modest than that, or whatever. And if he is not right on board with, okay, we're going to scale it back, then we're going to do only what you feel comfortable with. If he tries to pressure you to do more, run, sis. Get on out of that relationship, like, out the door, okay? Like, I'm telling you that from experience. Do not do that. Because I have, pretty much every guy I've dated has been really respectful of my boundaries, and most of the time we have the exact same boundaries, and we're like, cool, like, we're good. But there have been probably 2 times in my life that I have said no, and they've kept pushing, kept asking, kept trying, and I'm like, no, stop, like, get off me. And, like, you should never deal with that. And if you're the guy watching this and your girl tries to do that, out. Get out. Because if they can't even respect that for you early on, like, you need to go. You guys are not on the same wavelength, okay? It's not mean to walk away from somebody who does not respect your physical boundaries. So they should be respecting you. And if they say, like, okay, I'm totally on board, but then like the next time. I'm not saying people don't mess up, and you know, there might be times where you're like, hey, we said no, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I got carried away or something, and then you're back on track again. You know, people aren't perfect, but if they're like, come on, or this or that, or they say okay but they keep trying, no, that's rapey. Don't do it. It's not a good vibe. Get on out, okay? Another tip, be open about your past if you've had one in physical, like maybe physical sin, like sexual sin in the past you've done, and be open to if they have, okay? So hear them out, and be open to talking to them about it, because one way or another that's gonna come out. And what matters is how you are now, how you want to go from this point forward, and make sure once you do that, like let's say you tell somebody like, I didn't actually wait till marriage, but I want to now. And if they in the future try to push you to have sex with them because they're like, well, you already did it once, run out the door. No, if they know you're trying to wait, do not stay. If they try to manipulate you into, well, you already sinned like this before, you can do it again. Nope, get out. In those moments where it is tempting, because you will have those moments. If you really like somebody, like you'll freaking have those moments, okay? Like God made us that way. We have hormones. It's a thing. If you didn't know, take a science class. We were made this way. But in those tempting moments, remember your why, because that's going to be really important. And it could be, like if you're a Christian watching this, then your why is probably that you want to be able to honor God through this, and you know He has your best interest at heart. And even if you don't understand, especially in that moment, if you're like, this doesn't make any sense to me because I really want this, but I'm going to remember God, then that'll help. And honestly, there's no better mood killer than if you picture God standing right there watching you, Jesus standing right there watching everything you're doing, because He is. If you didn't know, He's watching you all the time. If you picture that, it kind of, the hormones just go away somehow, magically. And so maybe sometimes you'll have to think that in your moments of, what's my why? Oh yeah, God's watching. And then you might be like, hey, let's just go make some popcorn and watch TV. Another thing, if that doesn't work for you, is think about the after effects. Like, think about maybe after you do something, or maybe the next morning or something like that, how crappy you'll feel, and it doesn't make it worth it. Like, it's not worth it. You'll walk away with that feeling shame. The enemy will be like, wow, you are the worst, and be piling all this shame on you that you don't need. You know, think about that. Think about your future self, and do your future self a solid, and make sure the present self is doing the things that will lead your future self into success. Because I feel like there's probably no better feeling than being tempted and saying no, and then the next hour, the next day, the next minute, or whatever, looking back and being like, wow, I did that. Like, I said no to that temptation, even though it was really freaking hard. And like, that makes you feel really, really strong. Being like, you know, I really wanted that. My flesh wanted that, but I chose to do, like, make the wise decision and make the mature decision and honor the boundaries I set up. Another thing, if you set boundaries, you better be prepared to keep them, because, how do I say this? If you aren't, especially women, ladies, I'm talking to you right now, if you set a certain boundary for a guy and say, no, I don't want to go past this, and then you just let him keep pushing and pushing and pushing, it shows him, without maybe you realizing it, without him realizing it consciously, but it shows him that you don't respect yourself enough to uphold that boundary that you set. That's not good. Not even just for your physical, like, you know, your physical boundaries, but like also for your relationship. He will not have respect for you, and the reason being, you kind of showed him that he doesn't have to. Because if you don't even show that you have respect for yourself, then why would he be like, oh, but I have to uphold that for her? No, like, that's not how it works. When we see people like putting down their boundaries or putting down whatever, or being talked into, maybe it's like think about something as easily as this. Maybe somebody's on a diet all the time, but anytime you say, come on, just come have some ice cream with me, and they're like, okay, fine, then in the future, you know, every time you hang out with them, if somebody's like, if you're like, oh, I'm gonna go get ice cream with so-and-so, and they're like, what, isn't she on a diet? And you're like, yeah, but she always gets ice cream with me. It'll be fine. That's how it's gonna be, except not ice cream. It's gonna be way more serious. So if somebody, you know, subconsciously, without even realizing it, they're gonna be like, yeah, but she doesn't even uphold her own standards, like her own boundaries. So, and that doesn't make people bad for thinking that without realizing they're thinking it. That's how we are as humans. You gotta uphold your boundaries. And also, it is really attractive when people respect themselves. If you want your man to respect you more, uphold your boundaries. Even if you think it's gonna upset him more, no, it's actually way more attractive, I promise. One of the last things I wanna talk about is thinking if, okay, so physical boundaries, like, or I guess I should say being physical with somebody, like physical intimacy, can really, really distract you from how you actually feel about a person. I would advise all of you, you can take this with a grain of salt, take it or leave it, it's just my opinion. I would advise all of you that until you're in a relationship with somebody, don't kiss them. Have I always followed that rule? No, I have not, but I wish I had, because it can make you think you like somebody or love somebody or care about somebody when you actually don't, when it's just like you're getting that rush from the physical stuff and like your hormones are telling you this is good, so you feel like, oh, being with them is good, I like being with them, blah blah blah, when if in your spare time and you're with them, you're like, I'm bored, I don't like this, I'm not having fun. Like, if you're having too much more fun doing the physical stuff than you are just hanging out with them, then it's probably not a good thing, and you should probably hold back on the physical stuff to even see if you like them. It can be very distracting, and especially to women. We get attached very easily when it comes to physical things, and because of that, like, we can confuse our feelings with just hormones, and we could really think we love somebody when it's just we felt wanted in those really short moments, and that made us feel like we love them when we don't. So I would advise all of you to, when you're, you know, getting to know somebody, when you're going on dates with them and stuff, before they ask you to be their girlfriend or whatever, do not kiss them until then. That's my own personal advice. This is not me trying to say I'm perfect, blah blah blah, no, I've messed up, but you should do that because learn from my mistakes. So remember, you are so loved. It doesn't matter what your physical boundaries are. That doesn't change how much Jesus loves you, but he cares about you and wants to protect you. That means emotionally, physically, all of the above. So I hope you guys liked this video, and yeah, feel free to leave your comments down below. I love you so much, and I'll see you next time.